Jeremy Colson, drummer for Billy Idol. I've been a Vater artist since 2002.
Last night a little dancer came dancing to my door.
I started playing drums when I was 10 years old, and was influenced by Rush and progressive rock. And throughout my career, played with a few different bands. Apartment 26 was my first touring band. It was Geezer Butler's son. Then after that, I worked with Michael Schenker, Marty Friedman from Megadeth, and then in 2002, I started playing with Steve Vai, and I've been with him ever since as well. I've released a few records with him, a few DVDs. For me, drumming was when I was, I started playing when I was 10 years old, and I liked Metallica and Slayer and all those bands. And then when I was 15, I discovered Rush, and then everything changed, and I got obsessed about Rush and Neil Peart and learning all that stuff. And then Mike Portnoy from Dream Theater, and the whole progressive side of drumming, because I liked, when dudes had lots of drums and lots of cymbals. And so I got immersed in progressive rock. And then I started to get influenced by punk rock later on in my life, and just real straight ahead rock, which is kind of the irony of now, because I use a pretty basic drum kit, mostly because if I had too many drums, I'd probably hit them and overplay. So, but I always loved playing drums, and it always felt like it just came natural to me. And I was pretty obsessive about it when I was a teenager, and I was in the drum off, and I was playing in different bands and taking my drum kit everywhere, and have pretty much just been doing that since, and tried to make a living out of it, and been doing okay. With Vader drumsticks, I always remember, I started to see ads, and a lot of my favorite players were playing Vader. And, I had tried, I was using other companies' drumsticks for a while, and then I remember getting a pair of Vader 5B, and they were just so well balanced, and they just played so well. And when I would get multiple pairs of them, they all had the same weight and feel, and they were just perfect. So once I discovered that, they were reliable, they didn't break like the other ones did as much. I was just hooked, and that's all I used. So even before, I was endorsed by Vader, I used Vader. And plus they make the grip tape, they make rad gloves, and they're just overall an amazing company, and they have some of the best drummers in the world playing their drumsticks. For me, my stick selection is kind of interesting. I use two different kinds of sticks. In my right hand, I use the Vader Rock. Sometimes I use the XD Rock, and it's just a bigger, a little bit bigger than a 2B, a little bit longer. And then in my left hand, I use the Morgan Rose double butt-ended stick. And the main reason for that is I hit pretty hard, and usually a real important thing for me is to get a really strong, solid rim shot. And I find that with the double butt-ended stick, I can just get a really strong rim shot, and it projects. And especially with playing with Billy Idol, the snare drum is such an important part of the music, the kick and snare. So, it's less about dynamics and more about just being really driving. So I prefer to have a double butt-ended stick, and it's also the Morgan Rose Alien Freak. He's one of my favorite drummers, so that's kind of cool too. So, and then I use Vader, the grip tape, which is just, for me, really important because my hands sweat a lot, and I've always loved the grip tape that they have, and sometimes I use the gloves. Well, when I came into this gig, with Billy Idol, it was, it's kind of like when I joined the Steve Vai band, I had gone in, and Virgil Donati was the drummer before me, and that was, with this, Brian Tishy was the guy before me, and they're both just incredible drummers. And for me, I kind of, I watched what what he did, and tried to get the feel of that, but at the same time, we all have our own personalities on the kit, and I kind of took the approach that I've always taken, is that as long as I can sit down and be me and just express myself as much as I can and let my personality come out, and if they like it, that's great, and if they don't, then that's okay. And thankfully with this, they liked it. And I think, you know, Billy has a background of like a punk background, and I've been really influenced by a lot of punk rock, and I think having that energy for me coming into this, you know, as opposed to some of his other drummers, which have been a little bit more straight ahead rock guys, where I'm kind of, you know, have a little bit of a punk attitude. And then the other thing is Steve Stevens is an amazing guitar player, and my experience playing with Steve Vai, I like to try to use what Steve Vai taught me about when a guitar player is soloing, and how I can complement what he's doing, not just play drum fills, but try to lock in, you know, then be musical, which is a lot of what Steve Vai taught me. If there's any advice I can give for people who are aspiring to do this for a living, and to, you know, and something that a few people have told me along the line is just to have a positive attitude. Playing is one thing. I mean, there are drummers out there who can play circles around me, but the one thing that I have is I'm reliable, I'm pretty easy to get along with, and I feel that my enthusiasm is a big part of that as well. I think that it doesn't matter how good you are, if people can't get along with you, they're not going to be stuck on a tour bus with you for 3 months. And the other thing I would say is practice with a metronome, and, you know, repetition is so important. The most basic beat is so important to repetition is really important. It might seem like you've mastered something and you want to go on to something more complicated, but the reality is if you want to make a living with this, you know, they're not going to be asking you to do drum solos, you know, during a concert. They want you to, you know, be able to, you know, lay down the foundation, and that has always been the most important thing for me. Even working with Steve Vai, who's progressive, you know, it doesn't matter that he's playing odd time and doing all this crazy stuff. My job as a drummer, specifically a rock drummer, is to lay down the foundation. So that's the most important thing to me, and I think that if you want to have a career with this, put that as a priority, and all the other stuff will come along. I mean, Morgan Rose is one of my favorite drummers, and I've always been a fan of that band since they came out. And there's a lot of guys that are out now that are just, you know, that are pretty incredible. I mean, there's, you know, to me, a lot of the guys that I like are just the guys who are great at playing straight ahead, but they can also, you know, do the chop stuff as well. But, you know, guys like Shannon Larkin, Morgan Rose, you know, older guys like Tommy Lee, you know, but then there's like Steve Ferroni, guys like that who just have the groove. And, you know, I try to find influence from all those types of drummers, and I'm, you know, just into anybody that can really complement a song. Those are the drummers that I'm into. When I first joined Steve Vai's band, there was a section of a song where he would come up and he would look at me and he would start to solo, and I'd have to follow him, and it was kind of like this improv part, and it was always kind of this nervous thing every night, because I always, you know, he was always changing it up, and I had to really listen and yet try to play crazy and everything like that. And I remember, and he was right up looking at me, and I'm playing and I'm playing and I'm feeling really good about it, and the stick flies out of my hand and whacks him in the face. Thankfully he laughed and it didn't hit him in the eye. So that's probably the most embarrassing thing that's happened on stage. Well, this tour has been great. We've been doing the States before we were in Europe, and it's great to, you know, the difference in the type of audience with Billy Idol fans as opposed to the other people that I've worked with. And it's pretty amazing getting to, you know, we played Download Festival, and that was like 90,000 people. So that was the biggest show I've ever played. It was before Aerosmith, and so it's been pretty exciting. Some of the some of the shows, and like some of the arena shows in Europe. It's, you know, I've never really, you know, toured on that big of a level. So I feel really, really grateful, because you know, it's been a hard road, but you know, I've always loved playing, so I've always been positive about it. And, you know, with the bad times, there's always good times. Just gonna get ready to go play the show. Playing with Billy Idol tonight, and should be a good one. Rock on.